Hi guys, it's Max from Muscle World. I've got a new style of video today, sorry. I've got a friend called Gethin, who I used to work with. He's incredibly experienced in coaching athletes, in particular those who are looking to get good at running. So I've had quite a lot of questions, particularly on my military programs, from guys asking how to run faster, how to improve their speed. I've done my best to answer you with my training methods and the way that I've done it and how I've trained myself and how I've trained other people. But I thought it would be interesting and good to get somebody else who has got a lot more experience in that area and get their spin on it, get their perspective. And I think you can take a lot from what Gethin's got to say. If you want to catch up with Gethin, he's on Instagram. What's your Instagram?
It's at Gethin Rhys James. So that's at GethinRhys, and James, just like James in the giant peach. There you go.
And I'll put the link should be on the screen, and I'll put it in the description thing that goes underneath the video. Anyway, so we've got a lot of questions. I'm going to just basically list them through, and Gethin is going to answer them. So no pressure. He hasn't got a clue what these questions are, so we're going to throw them straight at him. Right, first one Gethin that we've had is, can everyone be faster?
Can everyone be faster? Yeah, absolutely. Anybody can be faster. Regarding how much faster they can be, it's very difficult to say. But in my experience, speed is kind of made up of three traits that are not so much genetic. That is your strength, that is your body composition, and as well as that is your actual skill. So if you consider the best athletes or the strongest athletes, just take a look at Usain Bolt, Johan Blake, Tyson Gay, particularly strong. You have to be strong. As well as that, you have to be lean. I'm not trying to be very abrupt here, but fat people are not fast. Everybody knows that. Fat people are not fast. It's that simple. So you need to make sure that you're lean. And as well as that, the one thing that people don't consider is their skill. People don't work on their running skill. If you take a look at somebody playing water polo, the basic skill they need to learn to play water polo is swimming. If they can swim, then they learn how to play water polo. However, when people are playing football, rugby, they don't consider how important running is. They don't consider how important running is, first of all. So if they improve their running, the rest of their game can improve because they can get to the ball first. And the more they get to the ball, the more experience they have on the ball. And then in football and in rugby, inevitably improves. So anybody can improve their skills without having, their speed, without having superior genetics.
So you look at, point earlier on, you mentioned Usain Bolt. If you look at him, you look at other sprinters, he's a hell of a lot taller than most of the others.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what would you say is the most perfect genetics for sprinting? Is it the tall height that Usain Bolt would have, or would you say it's the more shorter ones? Because you generally find that they're slightly shorter, quite powerfully built, but then you've got Usain Bolt then, who's a lot taller than the others, but he's able to run a lot faster.
You see, that's a very difficult question to answer because there's a variety of factors that come into play there. If you take a look at the person who is holding the record under him, I believe at the moment is still Tyson Gay, who is much shorter, and biomechanically is a lot more effective on the track. His acceleration is far better because for years now people have known that Usain Bolt does not have the best acceleration. And as
he's still speeding up when he gets towards the 100 metres, isn't he? He's still going.
And it's absolutely incredible because it's almost unheard of before Usain Bolt. The other two factors that make Usain Bolt is the fact that when his foot does touch the ground, it is on the floor for a little bit longer than any of the other athletes, and therefore he has more ground reaction force. And from what I've heard, he also has scoliosis, and I don't know if that actually comes into play. So it's not just a matter of height with Usain Bolt. He does have other factors about him that could be contributing to his speed. Especially that foot landing, because he does have a little bit more contact time on the floor, and with that contact time he can generate more ground reaction force. So I think it's a mixture between people's physical properties and their technique.
I suppose, yeah, so what you've got, and then what you see is genetics, what you start off with, and how you train and build what you've got from your foundation upwards.
Exactly, yeah. So it's about tailoring your gait to yourself. Everybody runs slightly differently. Yeah, it doesn't mean that anybody's running wrong, but everybody runs slightly differently.
Well, I think that's the same with fitness across the board. Is one size doesn't fit all. Everyone's different, and everyone's got to, like, what works for me might not necessarily work for you, and that's whether that's running, whether that's weight training or anything else.
Yeah,
You've got to find out what works and what's right for you. And that's why people like Gethin are great, because they can sit you down, use their experience, their knowledge, and say, right, this is the best path for you to take. I think that's generally what we tend to do, isn't it? Well, you listed 3 things. It was genetic, skills, and strength. What would you say is most important? If you could pick one to say this is the biggest contribution to improving your speed or becoming fast, which one of those would you say is the strongest one?
I would say if somebody wants to be kind of fast in general, I mean, if you want to improve how fast you are in general, you do want to make sure that your technique is up to par. It doesn't matter how much you can squat, if your technique is up to par, then it isn't up to par, you're not going to be very fast. However, if you consider, if you want to be the very fastest, obviously genetics is going to be the most important factor. The only thing I want to highlight though is that genetics do not prevent people from getting faster, it just prevents them from being the fastest.
Okay, so like an upper limit almost to that, okay.
Yeah, the upper limit is always dependent on, almost always dependent on genetics.
If I were to just squat then, do nothing but squats, didn't do any running, and then started running, would you expect me to be fast?
If you had quite a heavy squat, you will definitely be faster.
At least off the sprint, rather than, I wouldn't be a very good endurance athlete, but really good sprinter.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how you squat, volume, repetitions, etc. But yeah, 100%.
Okay. Right, well, the next one then, we've got, okay, I think we've kind of touched on that, the next question. So the first question was, can everyone be faster? The second question was, if so, by how much? We did kind of touch that on a little bit, but say if you've got a new trainee, maybe they're just 18, 19, 20, however old, or they're just starting training, they've been up for a few runs, they've been to the gym a little bit, and they want to really take their training to the next level, how much would you say they could actually improve by?
Quote that I tend to follow, and the one quote that I reinforce with any of my clients is Peter Drucker's "What can be measured can be managed." So it's actually difficult to know how much they can improve their speed by, especially considering that a second can win you a race. I mean, that's a second. A second can win you a race. And again, there's a lot of factors that goes into that. I mean, obviously, first of all, we have genetics, like we already mentioned. We have strength, we have body composition, we have the skill level. So there's actually too many variables to actually establish how much faster somebody can be. I tend to find over a 6-week course, improving people's technique alone, and as well as that, when you take a look at how good their posture is, how strong their core is, I tend to find within a 6-week course, people take 1.5 seconds off their time. But
what's that, 100 metres, is it? Or?
I do a 30-metre dash.
30 dash.
Yeah, 30-metre dash, because the thing is with a 30-metre dash is it assesses speed far more accurately. So I tend to use 35 metres, and the reason is the first 5 metres will give them time to accelerate, and then I measure the remaining 30 metres for their speed, so that we can try and take acceleration out of the equation. If we go past that 30-metre mark, people will inevitably start to slow down.
Okay, yeah. So that's an all-out sprint, that is, isn't it? What about if you were looking at more a longer distance, 6 miles, for example?
6 miles?
Yeah, if you were looking to run a 6 mile at a good pace.
6 miles at a good pace. A variety of other properties obviously comes into the mix there. We're not just talking about skill level, strength. I still say that skill level, strength and body composition come into play, but other factors come into play. So obviously muscular endurance, VO2 max, as well as that, vasodilation as well, which means how efficiently blood does get around the body. All these other factors come into play. So when it comes to obviously how much faster somebody could be over 6 miles, the longer the distance, you tend to find the greater the gap. The greater the gap is between how much faster somebody can potentially be. Traffic over 6 miles, you can expect within one of my 6-week courses to take around about 5 minutes off your time.
Okay. On distances like that, I know obviously we're talking about fast and speed, generally tends to be shorter distances, but on a longer distance, we'll say stick with 6 miles. What sort of pacing techniques do you recommend? Because I know when I used to do that sort of running, I would pick targets. I wouldn't necessarily count my strides or anything like that, but I would pick targets and I would almost race the target. Like for example, when I lived in London, I'd run the bus routes and I would literally just try and chase after the buses, and that was my goal, and that was how I improved my fitness. And I know some guys who they have been top sort of runners. I know he's very strict on how many paces he'll take. He'll literally know exactly how many paces he's taking, and he'll increase that per minute or something to increase his stride rate and increase his speed and the time it takes for him to do it. What techniques would you recommend for somebody who is looking to improve their speed over a longer distance?
I don't necessarily start off with cadence, because I tend to find that when people focus on cadence, they start taking their mind off the technique. So, and I know I'm kind of banging the same drum over and over again, but first of all, just be very mindful of technique. Your technique will tend to have its own rhythm. And as well as that, I tend to find people perform better, as opposed to focusing on their cadence. People tend to perform far better when they have a milestone. So for example, within 5 minutes I need to achieve this sort of distance. Because technique or cadence rather, will tend to alter depending on exhaustion.
Yeah.
So
The more tired you get, the more your technique tends to drop as well, doesn't it? And
absolutely. And with that, stride length may shorten because of maybe your core muscles can't cope with the ground reaction force as much anymore because they're exhausted. Maybe oxygen isn't getting through as efficiently.
I suppose as well, when you think about cadence, that's not something I've ever used. I only know it through talking with the people who have used it. My thoughts on it would be, unless you're running on a track, you don't know. If you might have hilly sections on your route, you might have downhills, uphills, you might be going off road a little bit as well. So your cadence is gonna change depending on the terrain. So that's what I would think about it. So I don't know how effective it is in that respect. For me, anyway, if I was going to use it, I probably wouldn't. I'd do more goal setting, and that's the way I've always done it. I found that to be effective for me when I've done it anyway. These days, weight training is a hell of a lot more popular than it used to be. When I first started training, we were doing circuit training, running, bodyweight training. But these were what majority of people seem to be doing back then, and that was about 15 years ago. These days though, you go to a gym and there's a lot of different weights. You go on YouTube, you go on Instagram, there's a lot of people doing different squats, deadlifts, and all sorts of glute exercises. Should emphasis be placed more on sprinting techniques, learning to run, rather than or weight training or plyometrics?
Yeah, again, I suppose it's completely up to the individual. If I did have a child I say a child because a lot of people I do work with tend to be between, I have a child that tend to be between like 11 and 12, or they're much older, they tend to be older teens. If somebody came in and they were particularly skinny and they were an older teen, then I would put some focus or put meat on their bones. Okay, so I would believe that the main thing that they should focus on would be the weight training. However, when people do increase their body mass, you can imagine that they may potentially slow down because obviously they are a little bit heavier.
What would you say is a cut-off point for that? Would you say the sort of, is it height to weight ratio, or does it differ per athlete, would you say?
It does differ per athlete. Obviously somebody who is much taller tends to cope with a bit more muscle mass far more effectively. Like myself, I'm tall and skinny in nature. Somebody as well who is much shorter than myself, let's say around about 5'5" or under, if they put on a substantial amount of mass, I will slow them down quite rapidly. If I would be completely honest, I wouldn't know so much regarding height and weight ratios, but I would certainly say again that it's all in the numbers. If somebody is spending too much time at the gym, it shows on the 30-meter sprint. Yeah,
I think it's definitely trying to strike that balance, isn't it, with whatever your goal is. How important are plyometrics in improving your speed and running?
I found plyometrics to be a crucial tool. More than anything, not so much for strength, because a lot of people think jump up on the highest box possible, which by the way is not traditional plyometrics. That's not the way to go.
Well, so you mean I can't just jump up on here 30 times as quick as I can?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's completely wrong.
Oh.
That's not plyometrics. That's not. I think the Shanky's shock method is what I tend to follow. So essentially, we're talking about the rate of muscle contraction versus how high somebody could jump and how many times somebody could jump up on a box, which a lot of people mistake for plyometrics these days. So I tend to keep the repetition range anywhere from 5 to 8, and we keep the set range anywhere from 3 to 4.
Which, because you know those rep ranges, a plyometric is supposed to be powerful. It's supposed to be, using as much power as you can in that one contraction. So you're not going to be able to do that for a sustained period of time, are you?
100%.
So it makes sense to be keeping it low in that range.
Yeah, and I actually put a lot of focus on technique with plyometrics. So I want a 0.5 seconds amortization phase. I want to go down, back up as quickly as possible. I don't want people to squat down. So what would be wrong? So they squat down, held the position, and then jumped up. So they hold a position to try and contract as much muscle as possible and then explode themselves up into the air. That's wrong. They need to be down and up as quick as possible. Depth is not an issue with plyometrics. If they don't get a lot of depth, that's fine.
Yeah.
They just need to go down and up as quick as possible. Don't worry so much about the depth, just focus on the speed.
I think a lot of people get confused with bodybuilding in that respect when you start thinking of going all the way down, full range of motion, work as much muscle as possible, but it's a completely different goal. For example, like jump squats. If you're going to do a jump squat, for example, I tend to find it's more effective to do more of a quarter squat, and you can get a lot more height and a lot more power from it. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, but from what my experience is, going all the way down, you tend to lose a lot of that explosive power and energy.
Absolutely. So you tend to find most people go into a quarter squat. What's also very important with plyometrics is the landing, and I believe it's Mike Boyle said this quote, but when you get to the bottom of the amortization phase, that's exactly how you should be landing. So one thing that I find very effective about plyometrics is the landing portion. So if you get people to stick the landing, because a lot of people jump up on the box and they bounce back off straight away.
Yeah.
But if you get people to stick the landing, it teaches them to absorb ground reaction force. Now when you consider that up to 5 times your own body weight in ground reaction force can go up through one leg as you're sprinting, it shows how important the absorption of ground reaction force is. Because a lot of people when they're sprinting, their core muscles are caving in because they can't absorb ground reaction force adequately. If I was to go into ratios, because I think that would be something that'd be interesting to the people who are watching your channel, I tend to find if I get an athlete on 4 speed sessions, lasting anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes, one of those sessions would be a weighted session. So I tend to find that pulling a sled is much more effective than pushing the sled because it keeps the biomechanics in place. Okay. If they want a cheaper alternative, they can use a chute. It can be almost just as good.
Like a parachute almost.
Yeah, 100%. Brilliant. I then tend to put them on 3 weight training sessions. The weight training sessions would have as much as 5 exercises with a set repetition range. Usually it tends to be 5 sets of 5, so that we are focusing on power and strength. But then the first exercise in that session will always be a plyometric exercise. So it'll be 4 weight training sessions to 1 plyometric. 4 weight training exercises to 1 plyometric exercise. And then on top of that, I expect them to spend at least 1 hour, tends to be 2 half-hour blocks usually, on their core stability. Predominantly looking at the lower abdominals, because it's a weaker part of the abdominal wall, and teaching their core as well to absorb ground reaction force through certain explosive exercises. If I was to give you an example of such an exercise, I'd have my athletes do a plank on a gym ball as I tap the gym ball so that they learn how to stabilise themselves efficiently.
But instability is certainly an area that's not focused on enough, and I do like instability in my exercises. I do a lot of movement. That's why you can see I've got a ball there in the flat. Before we move on to the next one, plyometrics. Would you just got a new athlete, just started training, who just want to enroll in this program, whatever their goal is? Would you straight away get them into plyometrics, or would you build them up? I mean, I would always, the way I've done it is I would gradually introduce them with maybe a bit of body weight training, a bit of strength training before the plyometrics to strengthen their muscles and joints. Is that something you would do, or would you go straight into the plyometrics?
It completely depends on the age. It completely depends on if they're injured or not. So if an athlete comes in and injured, right away, plyometrics is a no-go. If the athlete tends to be an older teen, I don't mind them getting involved in a bit of jumping. A lot of people say, try to get 6 months worth of weight training in first. But to be honest with you, I don't mind allowing them to do a couple of different jumps. You know, it is a fundamental movement skill that a lot of people tend to neglect these days in their training. Obviously, I need to keep the repetition ranges lower. I need to keep the set ranges lower. So I might have them just start off with 2 sets of 5 or 2 sets of 6, just to make it easy, and then I build it up over time. But I don't mind starting them off in plyometrics. But what's important is to understand the levels of plyometrics. So if you take a look at the type 1 plyometric, I'd have them do a single twitch. So they jump up onto a box as quick as possible, but they step down, they don't jump down. As they progress then, I tend to allow them to remain on that level around about 6 months, or until they can do a Bulgarian split squat at 75% their body weight. When they can achieve that, I then allow them to do more of a multi-twitch action, so that they may do, let's say, a squat jump but landing on the floor, and then immediately into a box jump. So all of a sudden we've got 2 twitches in one movement. Then eventually they build up into, it could be a squat jump, then a jump onto a box, and then land on the floor and then sprint, which will be a type 3 plyometrics, which is very advanced. However, if I'm looking at the athlete and they don't have what's called that amortization phase, how quickly their muscle is contracting, if they're down for more than 0.5 seconds in any squat phase during that sequence, they regress back to the other form of plyometric, the previous lower level plyometric, out of the series I just mentioned.
Okay. How would somebody who's done a lot of distance running, say they've always started off long distance running, they've never really done that sort of training, how could they, or could they, step into that style of plyometric training and build that, or do they find their muscles have lost that explosiveness from them from doing the distance running?
Not necessarily. Apparently plyometrics has been proven to boost people's running economy, so I would definitely recommend endurance athletes get involved in plyometrics in some shape or form. For endurance athletes as well, it's very good for stabilising the ankle, because anyone who's done an endurance event, like I think not last year, it was the year before, did the Cardiff Half Marathon, you're running, there's bottles on the floor, there's wrappers on the floor, so you never know when the ankle is suddenly gonna go. So it's very good for stabilising the core, stabilising the ankle, reserving energy. So I would definitely recommend that people start with the single twitch, so just 1 jump and then rest. Maybe as much as 3 sets of 5 if they haven't done it before, but if they have had experience in prolonged endurance running and strength training. So that's how I would get into it if I was them. 6 months in, again, go to type 2 plyometric. Again, if they want to go to type 3, which is jump, 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 that very repetitive sequence of amortizations phase, they do need to be doing a Bulgarian split squat of 75% their body weight.
Yeah, I mean, the guys who watch my channel, they'll know I'm a big fan of Bulgarian split squat. A lot of the people, I know a lot of my subscribers, they're looking at joining things like the military, things like that, and that's why when you talk about you never know what your ankle's going to be doing, a lot of the times these guys, they're going to be running on uneven surfaces, you're not being proper untrained, you're being boots, so you do need to make sure you've got that stability in your ankles and also your core as well, to make sure you're not, when you're running, going over and hurting yourself, because that bad ankle, that'll put you out of action for quite some time. It takes a long time to recover from one of those sort of ankle injuries, especially when you've got kit on as well.
As a side note to that, I would also say that when you stabilise the ankle, sometimes the knee will need to adopt the mobility properties of the ankle, so the knee can begin to be quite unstable. So I would recommend exercises such as glute bridges, deadlifts, try to strengthen the hamstring and get the knee more supported with your own strength as opposed to using supports.
Yeah.
If you use supports too much, as you know, you
just
become reliant.
Yeah, well that's it. It's they're definitely a tool, but they're not something to rely on. It's like if you're trying to, so you injure yourself, you're on crutches, you wouldn't stay on the crutches forever, would you? Eventually you're going to have to come off them. So yeah, definitely building up your glutes and hamstrings is very important. I think that's across the board for any athlete really.
Oh, 100%. absolutely.
What would you say are the best strength exercises for speed?
Best strength exercises for speed? Well, one thing that all any sprinter has, anyone who has managed to achieve great speed, are strong glutes. So I definitely recommend trying to get the deadlift into play. The kind of benchmark I try to go for deadlift.
Would you say conventional would be the most effective for transfer for speed, or?
It completely depends. If I have quite, let's say, a lanky person that's very tall, very skinny, maybe like myself.
I'm talking from experience there, I think, definitely.
Yeah, 100%. I would probably recommend going for the sumo deadlift.
I mean, that one gets a lot of glute activation anyway. The sumo, I think it's a lot more than the conventional stance.
Yeah, brilliant. But if somebody isn't built that way, if somebody is, let's say, shorter and stocky, I'd probably go for conventional, just because it keeps their feet in alignment. But for taller people, it tends to be a much easier exercise to coach than the standard deadlift for taller people, because taller people, they are much more prone to injure their back with deadlifts, depending on their dimensions.
Definitely.
So deadlifts are very important. If I do have let's say a rugby player, if I have someone trying to get up to substantial speed, I try to get them to hit 200% of their body weight eventually. As a challenge. One repetition, yeah. And that is a challenge. But it is a benchmark that I put alongside that 75% of your own body weight on the Bulgarian split squat. Now, regarding deadlifts, another one that I heavily value is a single leg Romanian deadlift. Not only because it helps an athlete to strengthen their muscles, which, like I said earlier, strength helps you to be faster. It also helps to coordinate the hamstring. So if you take a look at one portion of the hamstring, that bicep femoris, it does have a role of turning the thigh out in that direction. So obviously we don't want that when we're running. No. That's going to completely ruin our technique. So it's a matter of coordination. I tend to find that as well as introducing an element of stability into a strength routine, when people do a single leg Romanian deadlift, they need to try and keep the footus off the floor, pointing down to the floor as opposed to twisting outside. And that tends to help with coordination for running and the eccentric muscle contraction of the hamstring that happens when we are running as well.
I'm a big fan of that single leg Romanian deadlift, and I often program it for myself. One thing I have found with it as well, I found that it also tends to work the adductors as well. Have you found that that helps stabilise?
Absolutely, and like you mentioned, it does help with stability, and that is very important for running. But as well as that, your adductors and any muscle that tends to pretty much pull the leg inwards, such as the iliacus and the lower abdominals, they're very important for pulling the knee through when you're running. They're very important after recovery for the knee raise, just before we kick out and land our foot on the floor.
What about leg curl then?
Leg curl? I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend leg curls. The reason why I don't recommend leg curls, first and foremost, is that there is an association with leg curls and an injury rate. And they're good for bodybuilders. They can really build up the belly of the muscle, but it doesn't necessarily distribute resistance evenly right away throughout the hamstring. And as well as that, there's a bit of a proportion issue. You need the glutes to be strong as well, and you need the glutes to be strong in proportion to the hamstring. And when you do too many leg curls, you tend to find that proportion starts to unbalance. I like to use exercises that all work the two together. So, for example, a glute ham raise, or lying back, my feet on the floor, my back on the floor, my feet on the stability ball. Almost doing a curl then, working the glutes, because I'm almost in a glute bridge position as well. Definitely. I tend to find they're more effective. I'm not sure would you say they'd be better for if somebody really wanted to do a curl movement. Much better. In fact, I have actually used gym ball leg curls myself to help people improve the eccentric muscle contraction of the hamstring. Like I said, when we're pulling the heel through, eccentric muscle contraction is crucial. A lot of people don't think about an eccentric muscle contraction. Just in case anyone doesn't know what an eccentric muscle contraction is, when you're lifting a weight upwards, so when the muscle is shortening, that is a concentric contraction. But when the muscle is lengthening, yet there's still resistance in place, that's called an eccentric muscle contraction. And an eccentric muscle contraction does actually occur when we're running. So when we're pulling the heel through, that is where the gym ball leg curl will come in handy.
So we talked about the things we can do to improve speed. What sort of things could we, that maybe we're doing that's slowing us down? What can we avoid if we wanted to be faster?
Okay. I definitely do want to talk about what we should be avoiding and things that could have potentially spoiled our speed when we were younger. Cross country in school. That's a massive problem at the moment.
I love cross country in school, man.
I think
I was good at that.
I think people should call childline when they make the kids run that far, but no. You tend to find that a fast twitch muscle fibre can become endurance orientated, but a slow twitch muscle fibre cannot become speed orientated. So when somebody gets too involved in endurance activity when they're younger, essentially they have ruined their speed potential for life. Don't get me wrong, they can still make themselves faster, but not as fast as they could have. So if you are looking to be faster regarding max effort sprints, you should definitely avoid endurance work if possible. However, I do appreciate that people take part in sports such as football, rugby, which requires an element of endurance and requires an element of speed. I tend to implement fartlek training a lot, which is a Swedish word meaning speed play. So that is a mix of, like jogging, walking at some points, but as well as our sprints at variety capacity. Some people may run at 70 to 95% of their max speed. Sometimes they may run 100% for short bursts. So I implement a lot of fartlek training versus standard endurance work, prolonged running, because I don't want people to ruin their speed potential.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of fartlek training. I think that's quite a helpful and useful thing for that reason there as well. On a side note then, do you think that's going to affect somebody's ability to build muscle in their legs if they start off doing a lot of endurance activities for the first few years when they're younger?
I would say so.
Would you say that's going to almost limit the potential they could achieve?
Yeah, it's not going to only limit their sprint potential, but it's going to limit their potential of lifting in the gym. They're not going to lift as heavy if they've done too much running when they were younger.
Any other things you would avoid doing?
Sit-ups and crunches. Anyone who wants to look at the effects that sit-ups and crunches has on the spine can check out Stuart McGill's work. Very interesting actually. A lot of his kind of experimentations was done on pig spine. And when he created a device essentially used to flex and extend a pig's vertebrae, he found a lot of degeneration in the cartilage of the spine.
Right.
So in actuality, it does hurt the lower back. If you're going to go for any core stability exercises, I'd recommend other variations. Starting with the plank.
It's always the best foundation. I think the plank is always a starting point.
Definitely.
Plank, I'd say, generally, I don't know about yourself, but I would say build the plank up to a minute, and then once you do a minute quite easily, then look to make it harder, rather than just doing a plank for 10 minutes, 20 minutes. It's not challenging enough at that point for you.
Definitely.
There's plenty of harder ways to make it harder, isn't there, and more challenging for yourself.
Definitely, and like from the plank, they could build up to the rollout, and that's a very effective exercise. When it comes to developing the midsection, I always look at the lower abs first. It's the weakest part of the abdominal wall. Think about a lot of people don't walk around with their knees coming up here all the live long day. It doesn't get enough activity. The lower abs do not get enough activity. So if you're going to program a good core stability routine, always start with the lower abdominals. Always put a why to the exercise as well. Like I just did. I look at the lower abdominals first, because it is the weakest part of the abdominal wall. And then build up to the plank to introduce stability. And then use an advancement such as a rollout or a body rocker, which can be done on a TRX or a gym ball. And as well as that, anti-rotation is very, very important.
I actually prefer anti-rotation to rotational exercises. I know it's quite controversial in the fitness world. Some people absolutely hate rotation exercises. Some people think they're the best things ever. I'm in more I think it's okay to do some rotational exercises. I think they're good for a program, but I like and I prefer the anti-rotation. I've always been a fan of those. That's from my perspective. Anyway.
And in my opinion, it's what those muscles were designed to do. If you take a look at the nature of our lower back, it doesn't want to move about the place. If you consider between our ribs and our pelvis, all we have is the lumbar vertebrae. It doesn't want to move.
What I say is looking at your physiological structure.
Yeah. It
is designed to support yourself, isn't it? It's just to hold you up in place.
Definitely.
And that's why I found doing things like squats and deadlifts. Doing a lot of those, I found my core strength's actually improved and my abs have actually seemed to have improved just from doing those exercises rather than doing hundreds of crunches because they're supporting the lobe.
Absolutely.
This one makes me quite sad. I want you to stick for this one. Can you be too old to get faster?
Not necessarily. I do believe that people can improve their speed when they're older. It is more difficult, obviously. Bodies do pretty much degenerate, but if I put it very bluntly, don't be weak, don't be fat, and work on your running skills. If you can get leaner, you can get faster. If you can get stronger, you can get faster. If you can improve your running technique, you can get faster. So long as you have those three things in mind, it doesn't matter what your genetics are, you can get faster if you can get stronger, leaner, or improve your technique.
I think going back to the genetics, going back to genetics, I think a lot of people, they use it as an excuse almost. They go,
100%, absolutely.
I haven't done this because of my genetics. Yes, there is going to be some limiting factor, regardless of what your goal is, whether your goal is to be a good runner, whether it's to be a good weightlifter, whether it's to be a gymnast, whatever. Genetics are going to play a factor. However, you can always make improvements in whatever your body type is, whatever age you are, you can always make some improvement in whatever you're doing.
Yes.
With the correct training and programming principles. I mean, I know people who are in their 60s and 70s they're training and they're improving, they're lifting heavier weights and they're getting in shape even at that age. A lot of them have been training since they were in their 20s, and I found that they just maintained that and they're still fit, but I also do know some who've started later and they've been able to make improvements too. So age isn't going to stop you getting faster, like Gethin said. It may mean you're not going to get as fast as somebody who's 21 doing, you start training at the same time. You may not get as fast at the same rate as them, but there will be improvements.
And the thing is, people get discouraged so easily as well. So let's say if you have a circuit class in your local community sports centre, and there's a sprint section in there, and there's a 50-year-old trying to keep up with some of the 20-whatever-year-olds, and they're finding, oh God, I'm not getting any faster, but come in every week. Like I said, what can be measured can be managed. They need to start measuring their speed so that they can see the improvement. If you don't have numbers, essentially you don't know if your program's working.
Yeah, you've got to be able to, it's got to be measurable, isn't it? Anything's got to be measurable. You can see. That's why I got weightlifting. Everyone knows I do enjoy my bodyweight training, but it's very hard to judge whether you're improving on that because exercises can suddenly sort of jump up with progressions, whereas with weights, you can just add a little 1.25 kilograms and you know you're improving. And the similar sort of thing with sprints as well. If your time is decreasing, you're obviously getting faster because you're going the same distance in less time.
And on that note as well, I would say one thing that I've recently got all my clients to do is to keep a diary, and I have to bring it to me every week. So in the diary, they will log their weight training. They will log not only what they eat, but their emotions regarding their eating. So for example, I had a pizza this night. The reason is because I came home late, I was tired, I couldn't be bothered to cook, so I just quickly ordered out. And that way they can be proactive and they can learn to counter the problem in future, because I need my athletes to be lean if they want to be fast.
So you give them accountability almost for what they're doing.
The diary keeps them accountable. So, and as well as that, they put down their 30-meter sprint times as well, so that they can see the progression themselves. So I do believe that a diary is a very, very effective tool. I have a diary myself that I keep not only for my training, but for my coaching practice and for, obviously, like I said, my taekwondo business as well. So for the other businesses I have, I make sure I jot down what's working, what's not working. So diary can actually fit into any area in someone's life. Where they feel they need improvement, they should start writing it down.
That's a good point, that is. Right, sorry, someone messed me on Tinder. Right, so we've got, maybe 12, blah, 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 I'll cut all this out. People who've been on my channel for some time will know that I like to talk about warming up quite a bit. I do a lot of warming up myself. I spend good time warming up, make sure my body's ready for exercising. I do like to promote people to warm up. I invite you to warm up and prepare yourself for your exercise. Now, Gethin, what would you say is a good warm up for running? I mean, there's going to be some kind of specific warm up you're going to have to do. How important would you say this is to your actual performance?
Right. First of all, regarding warm ups, a lot of people warm up because they want to prevent injury. Now, I have a very traditional look on warming up. I do believe that when people get older, warming up does become more important for preventing injury. That's generally because people stop conditioning themselves in a specific manner. I tend to look at a lion chasing a gazelle. As soon as there's a gazelle, a lion can't stretch his hamstring first. He has to go chase that gazelle. So I want people to stop looking at warm-ups as a way of preventing injury, because almost by law of attraction, if you start thinking of injury, you're probably going to get an injury. I want people to look at warm-ups as a performance enhancer instead. Now, I follow something called the RAM protocol that I learned when I was doing a course with the UK SEA. R, which stands for raise the heart rate. A, which is for activating the muscle. M for mobilizing. P for potentiate. So we're trying to replicate the actual activity that we're doing. So if I was to go through a warm-up that I do with an athlete looking to get faster, I may have them do a little bit of a run to start off with. I tend to say run halfway down the football pitch and back, because I do a lot of work on the football pitch. The reason is because I can be very specific regarding how far the athlete is sprinting. I mean, they're in the environment that they actually need to perform in. So when they come back, at that point they would have reflected on their running technique from the last session they had, which I think is very important as well. I then tend to do a couple of mobility drills. One that I like to do is to get people to raise their knee up in front of them to above belly button height, stretch it out to the side and pull it back in rapidly, hence not only mobilising the hip but activating the iliacus. So I do a couple of different mobility drills, standard heel flicks, knee raises, maybe a couple of different running drills like an A-skip, but then we do a little bit of plyometrics, not too much. So we then top it off with 5 sprints, and then we're good to get into the session. All in all, the warm-up will take anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. And the whole point of the warm-up is not to prevent injury, but is to get them to perform better. And regarding what I mentioned earlier about using the warm-up to improve performance, like I said, that lion that was going to chase a gazelle that had to stretch his hamstring.
Oh, yeah, he's not going to catch the gazelle, is he?
Yeah, exactly. So regarding that, there's something called flexibility reserve, which can drastically reduce people's injury risk. So if you consider let's go to my sport, something I've been doing for a long time, that's Taekwondo. You don't need a lot of flexibility to kick someone in the head. If you want to kick a head height, you don't need a lot of flexibility. However, those that can do the splits are much less likely to injure themselves, because what prevents injury is the flexibility you have past the amount of flexibility you need. And that's your flexibility reserve. And the more flexibility reserve you have, the lower your injury risk will be. I would actually like to put a very interesting note out to your followers regarding static stretching beforehand, something I missed out earlier. If you have a very relatively talented coach, they may use static stretching in order to manipulate. If I was to give you an example, let's say if I had someone who has an anterior pelvic tilt, which means their pelvis is tilted forward, and I found that the key cause of that is tight hip flexors. I may actually get them to do a prolonged hip flexor stretch and a glute activation to pull their posture back into place. So there are actually times when static stretching in a warm-up can be used. but they need to be used properly. And the best way to use them properly is by a talented coach who knows his biomechanics like the back of his hand.
That's it, yeah, and he's able to apply that to that person to get the most out of them and improve themselves. Do you need to be super fit?
Do you need to be super fit?
Do you need to be super fit?
Do you mean to be faster in general or just in general?
Just in general.
Just in general?
Yeah, to improve your speed. What's your general fitness need to be like?
Well, I mean, I would definitely say that sprinting and weight training can be very stressful on the body, especially if you've got high blood pressure. So I would definitely recommend, making sure that you have healthy blood pressure. Make sure as well that your heart rate is within healthy levels. I believe at the moment they're calling it 70 beats per minute. And anyway, along that marker within, I would say 5 beats per minute tends to be quite healthy. Some people who are almost freak athletes would obviously start dropping their heart rate lower. So long as you are of good body composition, have good blood pressure, and as well as that, your heart rate is within a healthy rhythm. I should also point out, obviously, if you've got any injuries as well. I think that goes without saying.
I think that goes without saying. I think we're thinking about people now who are medically fit to exercise to begin with. I think that's the people we're trying to we're talking about in these sort of training programs at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I just think people need to be within healthy limits. If people are within healthy limits, that's perfectly fine.
Okay, so I'm looking to improve my speed, looking to run faster. What do I do? Do I just go out and start running? Do I just go down the gym, start lifting weights all willy-nilly? Or do I put together a program? Do I speak to someone like yourself, put together a program that's structured? And if so, how would that look?
Structure and measuring are the key to building speed, probably the key to anything. If you've got structure, if you've got a structured plan, and if you're measuring, you will start to get faster. Just remember how important it is to have good running mechanics, because if you don't have good running mechanics, you could get injured. So if you get injured right away, your program's out. Your program doesn't matter if you get injured. So I would definitely try to seek out a good running coach first of all. If you can't afford one-to-one training like my clients offer, so you can get group training. The big issue I tend to find these days is that the majority of group coaching is kind of endurance based. There's a lot of running clubs, and even a lot of running clubs, to be honest with you, don't really teach proper running mechanics.
It's just more of a group activities, and they go out and go together as a group. It gets
but what I would say is, if you get the opportunity to work one-on-one with a good running coach that will actually tell you whether your technique is effective or not, go for it. There's a lot of great videos on YouTube. I know Michael Johnson's got a very good YouTube channel himself over in his US based academy, which is sponsored by Nike. He's got a fantastic YouTube channel. It's given a lot of great info regarding how to improve your gait. So there is an abundance of information on the internet regarding your running gait. Then, as well as looking at your gait, I would say the next most important thing is to obviously try to elevate your strength. And obviously try to be generally fit. Like I said, the importance of body composition, the leaner you are, the less extra weight you're carrying. When it comes to the gym, if you've never been into the gym before, I would recommend starting off with twice a week with 4 exercises per session. Make sure that they're compound exercises. So a compound exercise is a multi-joint exercise. A bench press is a compound exercise because it works your elbow and your shoulder. So it's multiple joints moving at the same time. A squat is a compound exercise because you have your hips, you have your knees, your ankles, and even your thoracic spine needs to round when you're doing a proper squat. So if you get into the gym for the first time, 2 sessions a week, 4 exercises per session, focusing on compound exercise. As well as that, when it comes to just put a lot of focus on your body composition and your running technique. So that will be the starting point I would give anybody.
Okay, so start off, make sure you've got a decent gait. You're not walking out with your feet up to the sides or anything. So make sure you're spot on with that. Yeah, your running technique is not going to hinder your performance and encourage an injury. and then just focus on your fitness, get your strength up and your fitness,
Yeah.
body composition down, so you're a little bit lighter, a little bit more lean. And compound bodyweight exercise, or combat exercises, whether it's weights, bodyweight exercises, squats,
But-
strength training.
Regarding what you just said, I mean, bodyweight exercises, they are crucial. I mean, if you want to be faster, you need to be able to manage your body weight.
Yeah, I think it should be starting off for anyone training, master your body weight before you go and do anything. If you can master your body weight, you can move your body through space. That's going to be able to apply that into whatever you're going, whether you're going to weight training, whether you're going to gymnastics or running. You can move your body weight. You've trained and you learned your body weight.
And it's a concept I learned. I think it was from a guy called Mark, who was for Discovery Learning. And it was a triangle concept. So if you consider, let's say a powerlifter, they don't require a lot of stability. So if you think of it as a triangle, it's got a very wide base, but they're not very good at keeping themselves stable because they don't require that in their sport. If you take a look then, let's say at another discipline, maybe you want to consider, try to think of what the perfect example might just be. I suppose a lot of marathon runners, they tend to have a lot of stability, but they're not necessarily the strongest.
Okay.
To be an all-round athlete, you have to have that perfect triangle. You have to make sure that you have a good base, and you have to make sure that you have a good base of stability as well. And the way to do that is to introduce bodyweight exercises and to introduce strength exercises into the routine. And when it comes to the bodyweight exercises, don't focus on improving your bodyweight exercises with external resistance, such as a weights vest. I mean, they're very handy tools, but take advantage of TRX gym balls. Take away stability first.
Oh well, yeah. If you can do squats with both legs, you can do sets of 100 of those. Maybe it's time to start looking at something like a pistol squat or a Bulgarian split squat.
Yeah.
With your feet on a bench where you're going to increase your range of motion, you're going to make that exercise with the same body weight a hell of a lot harder because you've reduced stability and you're working your legs independently.
And a lot of people, I mean, even if they say I'm training for my sport, people are training out of vanity all the time.
Oh, definitely.
They can't help
Oh,
themselves.
yeah.
So I've seen rugby players and football players. What sets of reps are you doing? Oh, I'm doing 4 sets of 8. Okay. How is that going to help you?
That's a bodybuilding principle, I thought.
It's a bodybuilding principle, 100%.
But I just think that's the way it's gone. I think it's. I don't blame Arnold Schwarzenegger for this. I love him for it. I think he's great, but I think his principles, they're so well known and ingrained in. But that's for bodybuilding. It's great for building muscle. It's great for that. It's great for if you want to look like that.
Yeah.
But not everybody is going to benefit from doing an exercise in the same way. You can do press-ups in numerous different ways depending on what the goal is. And I know I get a lot of comments on here. People saying, "No, you're doing that exercise wrong. You're doing that exercise incorrectly. It should be done this way. It should take you 4 seconds to do the rep." It depends on your goal, how you do the exercise, and I think that's what Gethin's point is moving on to there. Is there's not just one way to train at all.
Yeah, I like to always like to be open to other people's opinion, like yourself, because there are a variety of ways to do things based on a variety of targets. So for example, I mean, some people may look at me doing an eccentric leg raise with someone where people are lying on their back, they put their foot up to the sky, their feet up to the sky, and then slowly lower their feet down to the floor. And a lot of people say, well, if you want him to get faster, surely he's got to be doing a faster lower abdominal exercise. Not necessarily, because my aim is to pull the pelvis into alignment and to stabilise that midsection, and in doing that, help them to absorb ground reaction force better. And as well as that, allowing them to maintain a good posture as they are running, which in turn will make them faster. So exercise is a lot more complicated. I think that's what a lot of people, especially all keyboard warriors, tend to forget that exercise is a lot more complicated.
Yeah, it just seems to be it's the 8 to 12 repetitions, 4 sets, take 3 to 4 seconds per exercise. It's not the only way to do anything, and as Gethin just said there, for someone to look, an onlooker, seeing him do that, you might think that his goal is completely different to what it actually is.
Yeah.
Until you sit down and talk to him and then he explains it to you, that's why he's doing it.
If it doesn't, and there's no harm if it doesn't injure someone, unless it literally harms someone.
Well, that's the thing, you've got to pick exercise, I feel, that you've got the risk to reward ratio. So the risk of injury, it wants to be as low as possible for the reward you get out of that exercise.
Yeah, and I tend to turn to Pareto's principle for that, the 80-20 principle, where I must always appreciate that 20% of the input is resulting in 80% of the outcome. If I was to give an example, I do little bits of hypertrophy work. I am currently working with one client who felt he was a bit smaller than his competitors on the football pitch, and in order to boost his confidence he needed to put on a bit more size. A lot of people don't associate size with football, but again it's about having an obscure goal. He was particularly smaller than the other players, so I needed to find an exercise which would give him the biggest bang for his buck and a principle to suit that. So per workout he's only doing 3 exercises, but the method in question is German volume training, where he's doing 10 sets of 10 with 60% of his 1 repetition max, and he's putting focus into bent over rows, single arm rows and Bulgarian split squats. Admittedly it could be a bit more taxing because they are unilateral exercises, but he's only then working not to muscle failure, where he can't do the repetitions at all, but he's only working to technical failure, where he can no longer hold the technique properly. So I would much rather get people to work via the minimum effective dose, as opposed to overexerting themselves.
You're not completely wiping his muscles out so he can't do anything, he can't play sport, he's working his muscles to the point where he's just getting that stimulation to increase the size and the strength. He's stopping there, because that's all you need. Once you've done that, you don't need any more.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you fill your glass up with water, get to the top, you don't need to keep putting water in it. It's fill up, that's all you need to do.
Yeah, and doing more will not help. In fact, if anything, doing more would hurt. I mean, like the glass of water, for example, you're going to get your hand wet.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, thanks Gethin for coming on. I think the viewers will enjoy what you've said and will be able to take on board at least a few bits and bobs depending on what their goals are. And I think it's not just necessarily for people who want to run fast and short distance. I think anybody could gain something from what we just talked about there and the information you just shared with us. So anyway, thanks very much for being on the show, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hopefully catch up with you again soon. Don't forget, follow me on Instagram. It is
at Gethin Rhys James. So spelled again because I do have a complicated Welsh name, GethinRhys, and as I always say, James like James and the Giant Peach. You should know how to spell James, guys. And that's it.
Cheers, guys.